I'm Jeb Butler, and this is Tom Giannotti. We're at the Butler Law Firm, and today we'll be talking about shootings and violent crimes and other injury cases that can arise at apartment complexes.
What should someone do if they've been hurt in an apartment complex?
I mean, it depends on what happens, right? If someone's walking through their own kitchen and they trip over the mop that they left in the floor and fall and, break an elbow, then unfortunately there's probably nothing we can do in that case. I mean, if you fall over something that you left on the floor, there's not a personal injury case there, at least not one that we would handle. But there are other situations where someone has been hurt through no fault of their own, where the apartment complex can be liable. Tell us about some of that, Tom.
Yeah, so broadly, there are a couple different categories. One is what we call negligent security cases, and that could be a sexual assault, it could be a shooting, other types of injuries where the apartment complex did something wrong in terms of the security that they were supposed to provide or held themselves out as providing for the tenants. Another sort of broad category would be physical injuries. It could be a slip, trip, or fall. It could be an object that fell that was due to something the apartment complex failed to repair.
How do you prove a negligent security case?
So I'll start if you don't mind.
Sure.
The whole idea behind a negligent security case is that an apartment makes money from its tenants. And in return from the money that an apartment owner takes from the tenants, the apartment owner is supposed to provide certain things. A roof and walls, that's part of it, but that's not the whole thing. An apartment owner should also provide reasonable security measures. It's supposed to make the place reasonably safe, basically. And that can mean different things in different places. If you're running an apartment complex in rural South Dakota, you may not need a security guard because there ain't nobody out there. But if you're running an apartment complex in certain parts of Atlanta, then the owner really needs to be paying attention to that and put some thought into the kind of environment that their tenants and their tenants' families and their tenants' guests are stepping into every day. What do you think?
Yeah, and another thing that is necessary to prove a negligent security case is notice, basically. And that's basically the apartment complex, something that should have led that apartment complex to know that, a security guard or other measures were reasonable to prevent their tenants or others from being harmed.
What are some ways?
I was just going to talk about notice a little bit. What that means is that in order to win the case, a plaintiff in a negligent security case has to prove the landlord knew or should have known that there was a problem. Practically, landlords know what's going on in their property. They've got millions of dollars invested in this land and in these buildings. They know what's happening there, but you have to prove it. And there's a few ways we do that. One way is what's called a crime grid, where you would order a report, typically from the local police office, that shows all crimes committed on that property or within a few blocks within the last couple of years. And you'll look for violent crimes. And you'll sometimes find that in a case where the apartment complex owner is saying, "Oh, no, Mr. Giannotti, I didn't know we had a problem here. Crime on my property, really?" Well, if you pull the crime grid, you find there's like armed robberies, there's drug deals, there's kidnappings. I mean, all kind of arson, vehicles get broken into all the time in the same apartment complex. And every property owner knows to check that. I mean, before somebody buys an apartment complex, most of the time they pull a crime grid. So we do too. I mean, that's the evidence that the owner looks at. So we look at it also, and often that shows that a landlord knew there was a crime problem. That in turn matters, because if the landlord knows there's a crime problem, then the landlord ought to hire more security guards, put in a gate, check IDs at the gate, put in lights, put in security cameras, do something to keep their tenants safe. If they fail to do that, and one of their tenants gets killed, shot, stabbed, sexually assaulted, something like that, then the apartment complex can be liable. So that answer took longer than I intended it to. What are some other ways you can prove a negligent security case?
Well, yeah, in addition to proving the other similar incidents or crimes through the police, you can also talk to witnesses, which is something our firm specializes in. We pride ourselves in getting out and doing the hard work of talking with folks, witnesses, and you can talk with people about other crimes or other things they may have reported to the apartment complex that the apartment complex may not have acted on. Requesting that the apartment complex hire more security or hire security period, or fix a gate or something that had been broken for an unreasonable amount of time.
Tenant complaints matters, and then former employees matter too. We worked one case several years ago where I took my little legal pad and a stack of papers and went moving around the apartment complex just talking to people. And we ended up meeting someone who led us to some of the former security guards there. We found a fellow named Octavius Landers. He was one of like 5 witnesses that we talked to who used to be security guards. And he had a lot to say. He said, yeah, man, I mean, the landlords would pay us with checks that bounced, and then they started trying to give us cash, but the cash somehow never came through. So the security guards weren't very motivated if they stayed on the job at all. And then he said, when they did, not only did they know that there were drug deals going on the property, but the security guards were taking half the profits on every drug deal that went down in the apartment complex. Obviously, that isn't safe. I mean, these security guards are working for the owner of the apartment complex, and instead of keeping it safe, they're profiting off the drug deals. I mean, this is no place to raise a family. So in that case, there was a 15-year-old boy who was shot and killed, and we were able to I don't know, I'll just put it this way. Once the defense figured out what we knew, they settled the case for the limits of the insurance, which was $3 million on a 10-day demand.
How do you prove your case if you've fallen or tripped at your apartment?
Why don't you kind of walk us through that, Tom, for physical defects or slips or trips or falls? How do those cases work?
Well, in those cases, just like a lot of cases, it's important to move quickly before evidence is lost, destroyed, covered up, etc. So, we always tell people to contact an attorney as soon as possible because we can help make sure that evidence is preserved. Short of that, it's important to document things, take pictures, or request repair requests, etc. Ideally, should be in writing, with a physical defect, there are a lot of times will be some sort of written work order or invoice, something internally that the landowner has in their possession. But again, our clients can help with documenting things by taking pictures, and again, contacting us quickly so that we can make sure that evidence is preserved.
What are some examples of physical defects? When you say that, what do you mean?
Sure. Well, I mean, just one example is a case that our firm recently handled that involved a mirror that fell on a young lady at her apartment complex. And in that case, fortunately, she contacted us soon enough that we were able to, and she got pictures, we were able to get the appropriate notices out to the apartment complex. But, had she waited, that the broken mirror, etc., would have almost certainly been cleaned up and repaired. And we made sure to tell the apartment, don't fix this because we want to make sure it's evidence in this case. And so, again, had our client waited longer to contact us, the apartment complex surely would have come out and basically tried to cover their tail.
Yeah.
Another example might be, something that's just an object, like, let's say, a pothole or something that's in the parking lot that's just not, it could be a hazard that's not marked very well, or is basically a hidden hazard.
Typically in a common area.
Right. So, let's say there's a parking spot and the parking lot is worn out, and there's a big pothole that's just been sitting there that blends in with the pavement. There's no cones or anything. It's not marked or otherwise, cautioned off. And somebody's, or it could be in a walkway, and somebody's walking through there at night and steps right in there and injures their ankle or knee, etc.
Yeah, some of the things you see more often are stair defects. We've got a case now out of northwestern Georgia where the stairs were just rotten, and this poor would-be tenant and her mom were touring the place to see if they wanted to rent it, and the stair collapsed. And then so the mom fell through. There's some really bad injuries to her leg. I can see the pictures in my mind now. Another example is uneven tiles in a sidewalk. People will trip over that and fall. You'll see broken kneecaps and things. But as Tom said, the crucial thing is taking pictures, because if we don't get pictures taken pretty quickly, then someone from the apartment complex is pretty sure to rush out there and try to clean it up and destroy that evidence before a lawyer gets a hold of it. So speed matters in those cases.
What's the first thing that someone should do who's been injured in an apartment complex?
And it depends on what it is. If the first thing you need to do is seek medical attention and take care of your body. And then if the injury is caused by the fault of the owner, by failure to provide security, failure to provide a safe environment where the stairs don't collapse or decks don't collapse and things like that, then it's contact a lawyer. Take pictures and contact a lawyer so that if there is a case there, that evidence can be preserved, because as Tom has pointed out, it can go away pretty fast.
What's the best way to get in touch with Butler Law Firm?
Call us, 678-940-1444.
You can do that. You can look us up on the internet at butlerfirm.com and have a chat session with us. And also, if you go to contact us, you can fill out an application for representation. Any of those three ways works. Most of the time, people just use the phone.